Good afternoon, everybody. It's quite simple story, actually. So you can shut your eyes. It's raining outside. You had nice lunch. It's second day. Probably feel very sleepy. Take your time, because I'm going to tell you a story, all right? Now, how many people like green? Do you wear green sweaters? Not anybody green? You're the guy at the back, right? Okay, well, great. So at least we have one customer. So this is based on a modified real case. We've modified it just to make a nice story. Yeah, okay? And it's actually going to show you how we apply this great presentation this morning by E2 Open about the AI machine learning stuff as well. So this is the industry, but we apply it in the context of how we actually move goods from A to B. All right? So first of all, and then thank you very much for LogiSYM for the opportunity to speak. So without further ado, so as you know, we talked about this morning about the e-commerce, the rise of e-commerce. I used to work for Alibaba. I didn't make my millions. I have a picture with me, Jack Ma. He's borrowed my shirt. It's in the Alibaba Museum. That's why I'm still working. So if you want, come to see me. I'll show you the picture. And Maersk Line, you know, they've gone into acquiring companies. They've got Amazon. We talked about it this morning. Lazada is very popular in Southeast Asia, including Shopee, right, and some other Indonesian companies as well. So digitalization is here to stay, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's in the industry, okay? So, all right, what I'm going to do now, you see the left slide? I'm going to go through it painfully over the next 20 or so minutes. I'm kidding. I'm not. This is just to illustrate, okay? So I won't go through what is AI, what is machine learning, because we went through that this morning already. So I'm going to apply that in kind of industry. So all you need to do is, are you colorblind? Anybody colorblind here? Or no colorblindness, right? Okay, good. Because just focus on the red dots. Yeah, you have Shanghai, Busan, Port of LA, then you have Savannah. That's all you need to think about, right? So there's an order that came for 500,000 worth of green sweaters, right? It's going to Savannah because they predict it's going to be in demand. They need it. So the forecast was done 6 months ahead of time, right? So there it goes. So before it leaves the factory on the outside in Jiangsu area, it gets trucked all the way to Shanghai port. Okay, as you know, not only port congestion, but also truckers is an issue. So sometimes I want to talk about first mile in this case. People talk about real-time tracking, yeah, geofencing, applying AI machine learning, say, is it going to arrive in the port on time? To be frank, it's not so critical in most cases. Some people want it because it's sexy, right? But sometimes some logistics providers just only want milestone events, because that will actually capture exactly where the goods are going from A to B, not necessarily real time. Real time, you also have to build that experience, that model, as we discussed this morning, the algorithm, etc. And the key to good AI, in most cases, is the library of data. Bigger library, i.e., how many years of historical data, it makes your prediction more accurate. It's not 100% accurate. If it's 100% accurate, I will not be here. I'll be using to predict the stock market, okay? And I'm buying this hotel, yeah? I'll be better than CMA or Maersk or whatever. I'll be buying things, okay? So I'm kidding. So I'm going to take an example where it's gone from the factory to Shanghai. It's transshipped in Busan. Okay. Now, one area where you can apply the AI machine learning is inputting the weather data. You know, in summer seasons, you have the typhoons, especially in the northern hemisphere. So you tend to know that on a typical typhoon, there's no way to predict when the typhoon will happen. But you can say, is it going to be a typhoon 3, typhoon 8? What's the impact? So what's the impact on the shipping schedule? So you can say, it's going to be delayed by a day or two. Any ocean carriers here? Or port operators? They can tell better than me or than us. But what we can tell you as a customer is it's likely to be so many days delayed because if you look at 27 years, in the case of Blume, it's been so many days of delay because of this Typhoon 8 or Typhoon 3. Okay? So let's say you manage to pass Busan and you manage to survive the typhoon. Then you go to Port of LA. As you know, there's congestions there. Okay? So when you arrive at a Port of LA, I presume some of you rich people fly business class? Right? So when you arrive business class, you will get VIP treatment, right? It's happening now in the port industry, where if you want, and there's what you call hot boxes, right, in the ocean carrier, but the port itself actually have this kind of VIP services, yeah, some ports. And I don't want to do too much advertising, but we also partner with Phoenix Terminal in LA, where they actually have a VIP service where if you are a retailer in US, for instance, you've got this expensive Puma or Adidas shoes, any Decathlon. Any Decathlon here that you were here this morning? There you go, all right? So let's say you have this super wacky shoes or mountaineering shoes. It's got a lifespan of 2 weeks, right? Or before the price drops. So you're prepared to pay to extract it from the port, correct? Get it to the end user. So this is what happens. So let's say you survive to get to Port of LA. Then you rail it all the way inland. Now, let me ask a question. Does anybody understand rail in USA? Oh, you understand rail in USA? Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, right? You can never move rail from, let's say, LA or Port of Vancouver all the way to the East Coast without kind of changing to different rail operators. It's just like flying from Singapore to Hong Kong, this is where I'm based. You cannot fly direct, but you have to change planes in Ho Chi Minh City. Isn't it absurd? It is, right? Yeah. I don't want to offend any Americans, but any Americans here? Okay, that's one thing you can do. Get some more investment in the railroad, to make it very seamless. You agree, right? So there's a hub in Chicago, right? So most railroads most rail gets kind of transshipped or changed in Chicago, basically. Then let's say assume it survives and it's railed to Savannah. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story about how things change. Okay, I've got other slides, but I'll stick to this slide because I'll tell you a story. It's the storytelling, right? So they predicted they needed 500,000 of green sweaters in Savannah. Okay, then on social media, suddenly says somebody in Dallas, this Nicole Kidman, right? We have a Nicole Kidman lookalike there. Stand up, please. No, I don't want to embarrass you. Yeah. So she starts to wear the green sweater. Demand spikes. So what do? Do you still carry on in Savannah when it's halfway in Chicago? You might want to change, all right? Then you switch. So this is where you can input data from various medium. So I talked about the typhoon in Busan. So you input weather data, you can actually get some prediction. You can also input media to analyze the actually prediction of the demand for certain type of goods. I don't know, does Decathlon do it yet? It's still kind of very newish thing, but this is where the social media feeds can kind of command or guide you on the kind of supply and demand. So let's say, so demand drops in Savannah because the temperature is higher than normal, global warming. We talked about the kind of green economy yesterday, right? So global warming, so a lot of cargo needs to go to Dallas. So things start to evolve and change at the same time. So at the same time, Miami, youngsters want to wear it. Anybody is 18 years old here? Yeah? Some university students? I love to see university students, actually. There you go. You are the future generation. Be careful, she'll be the future CEO. Yeah, okay, so well done. Yeah, so let's say this young lady wears the green sweater. Yeah, the lady in blue wears green sweater. Demand spikes as well. So what do? Demand drops in Savannah, so you shift some to Dallas and Miami. The point I'm making is, for AI machine learning, you can apply it in terms of the scheduling. Yeah, you can apply it on the first mile. I mentioned before, but maybe it's not that necessary sometimes. Yeah, just because it's there, you might not want to apply it because it might not be practical to implement. Yeah, on the last mile, you might want to apply it. You also might want to apply it in the rail side. In Chicago, which part of Chicago are you from? So on USA? From Ukraine. Oh, Detroit. Oh, sorry. I've got a hearing problem. Yeah, Detroit. Okay, all right. Yeah, sorry, I thought, sorry, yeah. So, okay. So, any Russians here? No, okay. All right, good. Yeah. So Chicago suffers from heavy thunderstorm over the summer. Am I correct? So, a lot of delays. So, you can build that into your kind of prediction. Like, if some UPNS or CX say, well, I'm going to ship cargo a certain day, you know that it's pretty, you got to allow for it extra like this. So the thing that knocked us off balance recently, do you know what? It's the port congestion in LA. Terrible. So because we have this, I mentioned, I don't want to advertise the 27 years of historical data, we had to rejig our algorithm because that 20 years, 70 years does not make sense anymore. So I think you will always have to update and see what's going on and reboot it, so to speak. Okay? So I'm going to talk you through this quickly so you can see, because I prefer to just talk through this, you know. So what's the impact? I have 6 points to mention at the end of this presentation, but I'll just talk through this quickly. I won't go through this talking those stats. But one thing that's transparent is, anybody that owns warehouse here? Luckily, nobody here, because otherwise I'm going to get you, warehouse operator, to treat the whole audience for a large meal. Because they're making money. Yeah, because the shorter space of warehouse. Agree? Because people are building buffer. Yesterday I talked about potatoes, chips, spoiled brats. But today I'll talk about green sweaters. So there's actually, warehouse space is actually in demand. I hope people agree, but disagree if you want, okay? Yeah, you agree, right? Correct? Good, I see the nod, good. So I won't get beaten up when I go outside, yeah. So, and if you look at, we polled some industries, a lot of them predict 30% of their shipments will be disrupted because of the recent events. And I think Vincent, where's Vincent? He gave a very good breakdown on this. Okay? So the other one I say, we also polled the supply chain officers. Yeah? Two things a lot of people fear is, I don't know when my cargo will arrive. The predictability, they don't know. They're a bit concerned about that. The other thing is visibility. Now, to be frank, when the cargo is on the plane, when the cargo is on the ship, you're pretty much safe, yeah? Well, as safe as can be, right? But before that and after that, there are lots of ways where things can go wrong. I call it the dark spots, the first mile, last mile. And this is where a lot of work needs to be done, especially on the inlands. And today we had some people that walking around the booths that came from the inland side, right? So, yeah? So, yeah, and if you look at digitalization, they predict, people say they can actually cost saving in terms of 3%, up to 3%. You might expect more, but if you're talking billions, 3% is a big number. And also operation efficiency up to 4%. Yeah, so that's I hope you're getting bigger figures, but this is what we polled our customers. This is what they think they're getting. Yeah, so, and one thing I like to say is the traditional way of forecasting is about 6 months. And I don't want to ask the Catherine, any other kind of fashion retailers here? No? Fast retailing here? What, Gucci? Yeah, no Gucci? Okay, I was going to buy some Gucci bags from you, but never mind. Okay, forget, yeah. So, but usually you forecast, am I correct, like 6 months ahead of time, right? But does it make sense now? Yeah? So that's the key question. So that's it. I think I'm based in Hong Kong, so allow me to do a bit of advertising a little bit, because I want to move on to some of the things quite important to share with you, and it relates to some of the way it works in America, because especially on the domestic front, because that shows our operation efficiency, right? And bear with me, because I have to do 1 week's quarantine when I get back. So whatever I say, give me some credit, okay? Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of give a brief introduction to Blume, highly quickly. We do supply chain orchestration, the supply management. We bought over a company late last year, and it's also do supply management. And early on, when I said we do 6 months of advanced planning when you want to produce something, yeah, this is where you can say have more dynamic kind of supply communication management. Then I work backwards to kind of the logistics part and also the visibility. I won't talk too much. It's about the logistics execution, yeah, and also, but this is interesting. I want to show this map because it shows the hotspots where ports are. So we've managed to build a map where if you want to ship goods from A to B, you might like the ocean carrier you're using, but when you arrive, will your cargo get unloaded in time? So we can tell you where, and other industries would do the same as well, and say, okay, they could do the same, where, even if you arrive on time, you will not be berthed until 8 days later, okay? And the other thing to watch out for, there are lots of alliances. I'm not commenting whether good or bad, but let's say the MERS versus MSC, yeah? Sometimes you might book on a MERS, but it's actually going on an MSC vessel. So which data do you pick? So I think the presentation this morning, you have the single source of truth. So you actually get that data from the actual truth. So, and sometimes, when you have data coming in from EDI or API or website, sometimes the data coming from the website is faster than EDI. You'd be surprised, yeah? So we couple in with IoT devices so to provide that visibility, including to our own apps as well to give that consistency for trucks, etc. So this one I'd like to talk about a little bit is asset owners. For those that own assets like containers or units, this is quite interesting. This ecosystem was mentioned a few times yesterday. And this is where we as an ecosystem, we are connected to ocean carriers, airliners, rail companies, especially in the States. We did have the rail from China to Europe, but this was a challenge because you have to go through 7 countries, including a few hot countries, which I won't mention the name because I want to be geopolitically correct. Yeah, so this is where we're looking to make things more efficient, where we work with the rail companies, and also we work with the ocean carriers that have containers. Most of the containers are coming from the west to east, and they're usually repositioning empty back to the west coast normally. So this is where we have a connection with lots of local forwarders. They call it IMCs, yeah? And the IMCs will want to use the containers to put cargo for various domestic places in USA and hopefully reduce the cost of moving the empties on behalf of the ocean carriers. Yeah. So this is one of the ways where industry is looking to be symbiotic. I was a biologist. You know what symbiosis is? I scratch your back, you scratch my back. Yeah. This is how we live. So I'll say thank you very much, and that's it. Have I overextended? Not really, right? Yeah. Right on time, right? Yeah. Yeah.